Now on BBC News, the latest from New York and around the world. Business Today.
Live from New York at the opening bell, this is Business Today. Wall Street starts the week in a mood that is quite cautious, though optimistic, as President Trump dials down the rhetoric in his trade war with China. Workshop of the world no longer. Beijing's leaders meet to set the country's next five-year plan as the world's second biggest economy takes on the U.S. in trade and in tech. Also coming up, under a cloud. Amazon says its web services division is getting back to normal after an outage took some of the world's most popular apps and websites offline. But is the world too reliant on a handful of IT providers? Plus, big ambitions. Sumo comes to London. Can the ancient tradition make an impact with sports fans outside Japan? Hello and welcome to Business Today, live from New York. I'm Erin Delmore. We're seeing a cautiously optimistic start to the week on Wall Street. That's after nerves were rattled last week by fears of credit stress in the banking system and an escalation in the U.S.-China trade war. Now, some upbeat results from regional U.S. banks have eased concerns about loan defaults. And President Trump has dialed down his threats to hit China with additional 100% tariffs. Now, all eyes will be on third quarter results this week from some of America's corporate giants, like Tesla, Ford, and GM, as well as Coca-Cola, IBM, and Intel. And of course, a widely expected interest rate cut next week from the Federal Reserve. So to discuss it all, we're bringing in Ron Sanchez, Chief Investment Officer, Fiduciary Trust International, right here in New York. Ron, I'm curious what you see in the banking sector. Do you see signs of risk?
Well, I think there's certainly some concern that at this point in the economic recovery, there has been a lot of liquidity, a lot of capital that's been deployed over the last couple of years. That this is an area where you want to sort of have your antenna up. Having said that, though, the economy remains really robust. Interest rates are coming down, and companies remain in good shape. So I think with respect to last week, really most likely it is quite isolated.
And now when it comes to tariffs, we're seeing signs of easing on China, but we're also seeing the Trump administration dial up rhetoric on other countries, for example, Colombia. So do you think that this will ease investors' concerns or just ratchet them in another direction?
I think tariffs remain an issue so far. Companies have been able to effectively navigate tariffs. We haven't seen much of a pass-through to consumer prices. Actually, we'll get a little more evidence despite the government shutdown. We will have a CPI report this Friday that will give market participants an idea about the tariffs and the impact on pricing. But by and large, it's been manageable to date. I think it'll create maybe a little more market volatility than real concern. As you know, we've seen a really strong market return environment since April with really muted volatility. It's essentially been one-way traffic, if you will. And I think at this point in time, any news, I think, given sort of the cautious tone in markets, could create a little more volatility than we have certainly seen over the last 6 months.
Ron, when you talk about the pass-through, there's an ongoing conversation here about whether tariffs will lead to long-term elevated prices or just a one-time price increase. Which lane are you in?
We're in the one-time reset, and that we believe that'll be the case because it'll be just a one-time pass-through for companies dealing with the adjusted prices. But also, it's very unlikely that we will see a sort of feedback loop where higher prices lead to higher wages, leads to higher demand and higher prices. I don't think we're in that cycle at all. If anything, labor markets have shown a little bit of weakness here of late, and it's very unlikely that that employment demand or the employment background will lead to wage pressures that could create a cycle with prices. So I don't think that'll happen.
All right, Ron, you've really woven together the picture now of what we're all looking at, and especially what the Federal Reserve is looking at ahead of its next meeting. Thank you so very much, Ron Sanchez. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
To China now, and a huge week for the world's second largest economy as the ruling party meets behind closed doors to agree to its latest 5-year plan. Now, China is facing historically weak economic growth and an ongoing trade war with the U.S. It's trying to reposition itself as a new center for global trade and collaboration to meet Xi Jinping's ambition in challenging Washington to become the global leader in the AI tech race. Our Asia business reporter Nick Marsh has been taking a look back at some of China's previous 5-year plans and how they reshaped the global economy.
Many say China's journey to becoming an economic powerhouse began in 1978 when leader Deng Xiaoping famously announced his country ought to embrace parts of the free market in order to save its struggling economy. This policy of reform and opening up, as it became known, was the cornerstone of China's next 5-year plan, and it transformed the lives of citizens. But it also fundamentally reshaped the global economy. By the early 2000s, millions of Western manufacturing jobs had been outsourced to new factories in China's coastal regions. China was now the workshop of the world. But even then, China's leadership was already thinking about the next step. It knew that an upwardly mobile country couldn't rely on cheap labour forever. It needed strategic emerging industries, a term first officially used in 2010 as part of the 12th 5-year plan. This meant green technology, so electric vehicles and solar panels, that sort of thing. Fast forward to today, and China's not only the undisputed world leader in renewables and EVs, it also dominates the rare earth supply chains needed to build them, very much a sore point in US-China relations today. Now, more recently, China's 5-year plans have focused on high-quality development, first formally introduced by Xi Jinping in 2017. This means challenging American dominance in technology and putting China at the cutting edge of things like chip making, computing, and artificial intelligence. There have been Chinese success stories like TikTok, Huawei, and even DeepSeek that show the policy is working, but Western countries increasingly see it as a threat to their national security. Until now, China's relied on advanced chips from the United States, the sales of which Washington's been trying to block. But that could change if the next 5-year plan includes President Xi's call for new productive forces. That means developing high-end tech, yes, but with the national security twist of making China self-sufficient, not so vulnerable to these US restrictions. So expect plenty of talk about that.
We've been speaking to Dr. Yu Zhe, Senior Research Fellow on China at Chatham House in London. She told us China's focusing more on its big strategic aims than on short-term economic growth.
Well, there's no really perfect answer for that at all. I mean, Beijing just have to strike that really precarious balance between the pursuit of prosperity and vis-a-vis the economic security. But I think really judging from the published documents, what we have right now, it seems to be all the eggs has been put into the basket of economic security. What President Xi want to do, it is to centralizing all the financial resources that China has to increasing its balance sheet to pursue on this technology self-reliance, because ultimately this is not the economy that will determine the future of the country, but it's actually the security, and can the country withstand the geopolitical pressure and the competition from the United States. I think that's where we are for this particular 5-year plan. Yeah.
Amazon says most of its cloud computing services are now getting back to normal. That's after a major outage that took some of the world's most popular apps and websites offline earlier today. Among the companies affected were the social media platform Snapchat, the language learning app Duolingo, the gaming platform Roblox, and the British banks Lloyds, Halifax, and Bank of Scotland. Amazon Web Services hosts IT systems for millions of companies around the world, providing around a third of global cloud computing. So it's seen as one of the backbones of the entire internet. IT expert James Bohr told us the incident underlies how much of what we do online relies on just a few companies.
What they've said is that it's likely to be, or they believe it's related to a DNS issue. Now, DNS is the address book for the internet. If you think of it as a postcode almost, essentially what happened was something went wrong with the postcode, which took all of the internet traffic, all of the queries to one particular service in Virginia. One of the problems is you've got so much invested into these large companies and you've moved all of the expertise and all of the systems out of the office onto their infrastructure. Moving it back is not something you can turn around and do overnight. You are looking at multi-year projects in some cases if you want to try and bring it back. So we've built this massive dependency on these small number of companies, and that means that this is what's going to happen more and more.
Now to an ancient sport that is big business in Japan, and it's making an impact outside its home country. The Grand Sumo Tournament reached its climax at London's Royal Albert Hall on Sunday, with Yokozuna Hoshiryu lasting past 39 other wrestlers to win the top prize of a massive trophy, a humongous bottle of soy sauce, and a giant Hello Kitty toy. Now, sumo has seen a rise in popularity among international fans in recent years, and next year's tournament is set to be held in Paris, further raising the European profile of this ancient Japanese sport. There are only around 600 professional sumo wrestlers, and the majority are Japanese. George Young is secretary and treasurer of the British Sumo Federation, and he's been telling us how important this tournament has been for sumo enthusiasts in the UK.
It's been huge for us to have these guys come all the way over to the UK. It's been a huge privilege, and I'm enormously grateful to them for doing it. You know, I saw it on Wednesday night. It was an incredible show, loved it. And it's been great publicity for us as well. We've had a lot of interest. People have seen it on TV. You know, my mum's friends have seen it, asking me all about it. It's incredible to get this amount of interest. It's still small in the UK, but it is growing. In the last 2 years, we've opened multiple clubs. We've got clubs in the north and south now. So it is growing. It is still a small sport, but we are rapidly expanding with more clubs on the horizon.
In other news, Argentina has formalized its $20 billion currency swap deal with the U.S. aimed at shoring up its asset market against pressure. Now, President Trump welcomed Argentina's President Javier Milei to the White House last week, where he praised him for sharing conservative values and said he was on the verge of tremendous economic success. The endorsement comes ahead of crucial midterm congressional elections in Argentina. European Union countries have agreed to phase out remaining gas imports from Russia by the end of 2027. The plans must still be passed by the European Parliament and are designed to prevent energy exports being used to fund Russia's war in Ukraine. That's all for us for now on Business Today. Please stay with us here on BBC News.